Good morning. So, I want to talk a little bit about a spiritual awakening and the pain of a spiritual awakening, what a spiritual awakening is. And because when you can understand what it is at its core, and then you can navigate it more easily and understand what you're going through. And you can maybe take the process quicker, maybe be a little bit less. Understand it better so that you can um, maneuver through it easier and quicker. I just want to show you where I'm at because it's beautiful. So I'm here, I'm in Galilee, and my name is Shoshana, and that is the pillar of Nachalamud. Nachalamud means the river of the pillar. So that is the actual pillar. I live a few minutes away from it. And I'm here with Lola and Rexy. Where's Lola? There she is. Rexy's off running around, probably chasing rock rabbits somewhere. He always goes on his own adventures. Um, so, if you understand who we are as humans, the structure of us, then it's easier to understand what a spiritual awakening is. We have two parts. It's like everything. We're dual. We have the yin and the yang. We have the physical body, and we have the spiritual body or the soul. Um, the unseen part of us that is always connected. And the way that I see it energetically is that we are infinite beings. The physical part of us is infinite, has always been, will always be. Everything that makes us up has always been here. We are one example of what this whole universe has one makeup. We are one individual example of something that can be made from all of this Play Doh. And we are the only example of its kind. And the only one that will ever be. Well, I don't know if that's exact, but it's pretty close to exact. Um, with given our physical makeup and our spiritual makeup and everything that created who we are, it is dependent on everything that happened in within our life and before our life, because everything that happened in our life is dependent on what happened before us and before that and before that and before that. And every single cell in our body has been something else before. It has been the dirt of the has been the dirt, has been the dust, has been other people, has been the other animals, has been plants. We know this. We eat plants. We are made up of the plants. We are made up of everything that is all around us. And so our physical body has always been here and will always be here, and we belong just like anybody else belongs in this universe. We are made up of this universe. And it's the same thing for our spiritual soul. Has always been here, always been a part, always is eternal, and has always been and will always be, and belongs and is relevant. And no part, every part is it's like being one big mechanism, and every part is as important as any other part. We are irremovable. We cannot be removed. Um, the minute one ant is removed, the whole system falls apart. So if you think of it that way, you see that we are of greatest importance, and it can be no other way. And so we were given this body to come into and to experience this life and expand the consciousness, expand. Everything is always in constant expansion. The whole universe is in constant expansion. And we are in constant expansion. From when we're born, we are in movement. If you think about it, everything has to be in movement because life is in movement. And everything moves on time, right? Everything is relevant. There's time, space, matter, and energy. and everything is relevant. And in this Maymad, in this dimension, the physical dimension, is the one pinpoint where all of these things come together and they create this existence, right? Because energy exists on its own, but without relevance of matter or time or space, then energy has no meaning. It's just energy with nothing. If it doesn't move up against something, it doesn't have any kind of friction on anything, then it has no meaning. And it's the same for space. It's the same for matter. It's the same for time. And all of these four elements move together and work together to create this existence. And that we came into this existence and have this body and that we can experience it and understand this is a gift. It's a gift, and it should be treated like that in every single moment of time. And as long as we're in our minds thinking of the future or thinking of the past, we are not within the gift, because the only time that is in existence is the current time and the current time and the current time and this moment and this moment and this moment and this moment. And every moment is as important as the moment before it, and every moment carries with it unlimited potential and unlimited um, um, no limits. Every single moment in time, and matter is like our Play-Doh, and time is like the road that we're on, that we can, is what allows things to unfold. Because if everything was stopped in time, there would be no life. There wouldn't be anything for things to unfold on. And energy is life, it's movement, it's the allows us to take matter and move it from place to place on this line of time, right? And space gives us the room to do it, and that we have legs, and that we are uh, in a way disconnected. We're always connected, that in a way everything is a paradox, and in a way we're disconnected from the ground. We can move through this time space matter, using energy, using movement, using life. We create life, we are life, and we, inside of our beings, are all of these four elements, right? We are on time. We're constantly going through time, and time is relevant because you can notice that you can bend time. Times when you do more things, days that you do more things, and you look back, you say, wow, this morning that was like eons ago. And so everything is relevant, and you can bend time, and you can almost suspend time. And every single moment has unlimited potential. It's just that we forget. We forget who we are. We forget that we are creators. We forget that where we are. We forget the magnificence of everything. And we get stuck in our minds, and we get stuck in lack. We get stuck in all of these weak thoughts. We get stuck in thoughts because our soul, at the soul level, is consciousness, is pure consciousness. So what is a spiritual awakening? It's coming back to that pure consciousness. It's coming into the now, because when you're in the now, you are an experiencer. When you're in your mind, you're thinking about the past, and oh no, and you're projecting the past onto the future. Because why do you go into the past? Because you're afraid of the future. And when you think about it, fear, there are different types of fear. But most of the human condition, most of the suffering of humans is fear-based. And you are in fear because you're fearing the future. You're fearing something that doesn't even exist. And when you're afraid like that, you're afraid to live life to the fullest. You're afraid of potential of life. You're afraid of, what if I do this? I'm not even talking about fear of what other people think. I'm so far past that point, and I really, and I'm saying it from a place of awe. I'm so blessed to be past that place, and I really wish it upon everybody to be past the place of you know, it's really nice to get other people's feedback, and other people like me. It's like nice to be liked, but it's not something that I put any kind of hang my hat on, or any kind of super importance on. There's certain people that I respect their opinion, and I really want them to like me and to respect me and to see my worth. Um, but more than that, other people's experience is their experience, and usually what they're projecting out, their likes or dislikes, is based on their own being. And pretty soon I'm going to explain what a spiritual awakening is, and then you'll understand how other people's opinion is just simply not relevant to me. It's based on their weaknesses and on their archetypes and the way that they judge the world based on their life experience and who they are, and they're projecting their own selves out on me. It's not a projection of me. I am the only one that projects me and conceives me. So I am at the center of my universe and at the center of my being. Um, so in saying that we are these powerful beings, and when we are fully awakened into our soul, then we are living in the moment, in each moment, and then we are aware of all the potential and the beauty, and we're in awe of everything that is all around us. We understand that every single cell and every single uh, uh, everything is of relevance, and everything is of same importance, and everything, see, it's a paradox, yeah, because there's nothing that I say that is absolute, and everything that I say is interpreted, I'm sure is interpreted by each person and touches them in their own ways. But it is an overall assessment, because we have to put things into words, and when we put things into words, we make them much smaller than they really are. It's like taking this massive idea. It's like trying to explain what God is. You can kind of explain around God, but to be able to grasp the concepts. But once you try to grasp it and hold on to it, then you're missing the concept, because it's so vast that you can't put it into words. Words are too small for it. So take that into consideration when during my explanation. Also, everybody, it will resonate with everybody exactly where they are on their spiritual awakening. That's why I would suggest going back and watching this video again a few months down the line, making a mental note, saving, subscribe, and like my videos. I do videos like this. I do videos when I'm stuck in my ego, and I'm talking about the twin flame journey. And I do it's raw. Whatever I feel, I do. So there's it's a mishmash of all sorts of different things, um, thoughts and ideas. And appreciation is a big, big, big tool for coming down into the now. When you're in appreciation, you're noticing things that brings you into the now. And maybe at the end of this, if I remember, I'll give you some tools to how to bring yourself back into the now. Um, Tools that I use when I start flipping. So when you go into your mind, when you go into the past or the future, you're not living in the now, and all of the potential in those moments that you're in your mind. First of all, you're reliving things that you already know. You're projecting things that you already know from the past into your future. So you're taking your future from being something so vast, and you're making it super, super small. You're making it into what you already know, instead of allowing the universe to open up to you. Vast worlds. There's so many different worlds. There's so much knowledge. There's so many different ways of being. I mean, if you just look at different cultures, if you look at the American culture, Chinese culture, um, Arab culture, or different religions. There's so many different ways of being, and each person thinks that their way of being is right. And when I was young, we moved around a lot, and that was something that I noticed even moving around within the States, is that everywhere that you move, everybody is different, and everybody thinks they're right. So who's right? Why is one person's way righter than another person's way? And that opened up my whole world for me, the realization that there is no one right way of being. And then all of a sudden you get interested in other ways of being, and what other people believe, and you can take a little bit from here and a little bit from there. And then you realize that when people believe that there's only one way of being, they're really narrowing their life experience down to what they already know. And so, what is spiritual awakening? The spirit or the soul at the top level is it is not of matter. It is fluid and it is pure consciousness. So it is connected to the all. It is just a floating Havaya. Havaya is experiencer or experience or consciousness. That would be the probably of an awake consciousness. It doesn't have a container to contain the memories in or to make any kind of judgments over the because where do our judgments come? They come from our memory. They come from our past experiences. So when we experience something, we have already experienced something similar, or we've seen something similar, then we create a judgment about it, and we attach a meaning to whatever it is that we're experiencing, and then we attach emotion to it too. So so we have all these attachments that we attach to it because we have this physical body. But at the soul level, right, at the spirit level, the soul level, there is no attachment, there is no judgment, there is only the experience. So going through the experience and watching, it's like the observer. There's an observer, and all it does is observe. It can't collect information because it doesn't have any kind of container. And so when we come into this world, we get this body and we get this being, which is a container for this consciousness. So the soul comes into this container, and in this container, we have a mind where we can store thoughts, we can store um, experiences, we can create judgment, we have this thinker in us. We can remember the past, we can project the future. So we are already in this container, we're already manipulating time, because time is only happening right now, right now, right now, right now, right now. This is the only moment in time that there's any power in. We can plan our future, we can remember the past, but we have no power in those places until they come. The only moment in time that we have any kind of power in, and this is important, and this is why I'm saying it again, is the current moment, and the current moment, and the current moment, and the current moment, and the current moment. And so when we come into these bodies, we get these containers and we get the ability to manipulate time, matter, energy, and we get it's a gift. Think of it. How many people there are? There's tons and tons of people, right? Billions of people. But this is such a unique experience for each of us to come into this body and we've gotten this precious gift of life, of the mixing the matter with the spirit, and being able to um, go through this. And each of us get this different body and this different way of thinking and this different makeup of DNA and this different mishmash, because I like I said, each of our bodies and each of our own makeups is a complete individual creation of God. We're a part of God. If you think about it, all of this is God. And this plane, this physical plane, is a place of manifestations already made. Everything that is in the physical world has already come together has already formed, including our words. Our words are like the simplest form of manifestation. We're taking something from the ethers and bringing it out into the physical world and creating a vibration, and our thoughts create our words, create our experience, create our surroundings, create our relationships. And all that this is an experience. We're going out. I'm not even going to be taking this with me when I go. I'm taking nothing with me. I'm not taking any of my meat with me when I go either. I'm taking nothing with me. It's all this is an experience of expansion, and God is in constant expansion. So when we are in expansion, when we're giving our gifts to the world, when we are living life to the fullest, then we are expanding our consciousness, we're growing. And that's when we notice that we are in our life light, we are in the most enjoyment that we can be, and we are in we are the happiest that we ever have been when we're giving, when we're in our life flight, when we're out experiencing, when we're learning new things, when we get into the now and we forget who we are. That's when we enjoy life the most, because we're in the most expansion, where we are in our natural place of being. And so we're given these containers, and then we think we're the container, right? Because in this container, they're at the top. Think of it as a pyramid. Okay, think of of this being as a pyramid. So we come in as a soul that has no containment and cannot collect any kind of experience. It's just a wandering consciousness, and we come into these bodies, these beautiful, amazing, intricate. Just that we have this the most amazing. Think of this gift. I mean, think about how everything in our body works together. We have a heart, and we have lungs, and we have teeth, and how everything. I'm looking at my teeth. We have eyes, and we have these five senses to experience life through. Think about it. We only have five senses. Think how limited we are. Think about a lot of times I've had these thoughts about, wow, we are experiencing this whole life only through five senses. Imagine that if you didn't have the sense of smell, that there would be smell all around you that you couldn't sense. You would never imagine that there could be such a thing as smell. So imagine how many things like that there are around us that we just don't have the senses to pick up on. And we know that there are, because there are other animals that have these senses, like the monarch butterfly that flies for thousands and thousands of miles into the exact same tree that it was, born at. Like, how does that work? Or the dolphins, or migration, or all of these things. We also have, like the instinct to be sexual. How do we have that instinct? How do we know what that is by instinct? How do we know what hunger is? Like, we get hungry and we know we want to eat. How do we know? It's not something that we even need to be taught. It's something that we just know through our own being. And so we are given these bodies, and inside it, so that so that it can contain the soul, so that the soul can have an experience. And the only thing that experience is being able to take all of your life experiences and collect them. So we're like a collector, let's say, like a container for the soul, and for the soul to be able to have this experience. And so in this experience, so in this body and in this collective, we get this ego. And the ego, what it does, the ego's main purpose is to, first of all, contain contain everything that we gather. And the ego is at the, like, imagine our being as a pyramid, and the ego is at the top of the pyramid. The ego is what contains everything. And the ego, one of the egos, it also contains downwardly, but also upwardly, it sends a signal that we are separate from. It is the ego is what holds us separate from everything else. Because if we didn't have the ego and we didn't think that we were this separate being from everything else, then we would just lay down in the dirt and go back into it, because we realize there's no real purpose in it. We're a part of everything anyway, and whatever happens doesn't really see. See, this is also a paradox of sorts, because it's the most important thing, because we're expanding consciousness, but at the same time, it's the least important thing. It doesn't matter. Our lives, it's just like we're part of everything anyway, and we're eternal anyway, and we're going back into everything anyway. So if we didn't have the ego that is telling us that we're a separate entity, and we have to, that wants to stay alive and wants to have this experience and wants to, thinks that we're separate from everything and holds us separate from everything, then we wouldn't have that, the push for life, when you get into danger and you want to, you save yourself, or you or you eat because you want to keep your body alive. So the ego allows us to feel like we're separate from everything around us and from everybody around us, because otherwise we would just know that we are part of everything, and that's all, and that we are, connected to everything, and it doesn't matter if we have this life or not. The wanting the life is like the greed of the ego. the ego thinking that it's separate. So in this ego is the container of everything. This ego is the sense of I, the sense of, and because we come into these bodies and we have lost ancient knowledge, we don't know who we are. And humans come in thinking that they are this body, and thinking that they are this ego, and thinking that they are this, that the ego is them. And it's a false sense, because we're so much greater than that. We're so much more than that. We are what came into this container. But the ego is the sense of I. The ego is what allows us to have this human experience, and what allows us to guard ourselves. The ego has, and the ego is, a lot of times I understand that people think that egos are a bad thing. The ego is not a bad thing. The ego is probably the biggest, best, most sacred tool that you've received for this. It's a tool. It's your tool. It's your ultimate tool. It's the toolbox. It's the container for all the tools. It is the container. It's what contains everything in your being. The ego is what holds you all together. And it's like the umbrella of everything. And under this ego are archetypes. And archetypes, the way that I see archetypes, there are energetic. They're energetic, almost like entities. There are entities all around us that we cannot see, that are bodiless, that are formless in the 3D. Yeah, they're bodiless and formless in the 3D. But these entities are consciousness. And many of these entities, even you could say that marijuana is an entity. And how does it receive, how does marijuana receive its expression? It receives its expression through us. The only way that marijuana receives besides the fact that it's a plant and that you can see it and that's a form of expression, right? But I'm talking about its expression of its medicinal uses and so in order for marijuana to receive an expression, it needs a host, which is a human. So you have to uh, intake marijuana in order for marijuana to receive its expression. So you could see marijuana as an entity, that in order for it to receive its expression in the physical world, it needs a host, and we are the host. So if you look at, there's also other entities all around us that also receive expression through us as a host. If you're interested in that, you can look into a video that I did about jinns, which is interesting. Jinns, that we are hosts of jinns, and I don't want to get into it because it's a massive subject. I did 2 videos about jinns. One of them is a short version, and it really is a good version. It takes everything into like that and explains it really clear. So jinns seep in through cracks that we leave open. In these archetypes, and they're also connected to the archetypes, because when we don't stand up in the strengths of our archetypes, then we leave these back door open, and then we're in the shadows of our archetypes, which are the dark side of the archetype, right? Because everything is dual, and everything is like on a spectrum or a paradox of sorts. So we receive these archetypes, which are structures of behavior, which are energies. So each being is like a beacon, and it has 2 parts. It has the part that it is connective, that it receives, and it also has the part where it emits. And just like a beacon has a receiver where we receive information from the universe, but we also emit information outward. So we receive information, it goes through the filter of us, right? You could see it in the physical world where we go to school, we learn things, when we receive the information. And then when we talk about it, it goes through the filter of our mind and how we understand it and how it goes through us, it goes through like this filter. And then when we speak it in a completely different way than it was taught to us. So we are filters. We're filters of everything that is around us. And so we're like beacons. Everything that I am saying now is channeled. And so it's coming from the ethers, it's coming through me, and it's getting expression through me. And I am doing the clearer I make myself as a being, the cleaner the the connection of mind to God and to the ethers and to everything, the cleaner the message comes through me and the more pure it comes through me. And the more pure I can channel it through me, without going into weaknesses. I've done a lot of self work to be able to get to a place where the things that come through me, as much as possible, it's like standing aside. It's like taking your ego and standing it aside and allowing the flow of the explanation of these things to come through me. So this is definitely channeled. Um, we I need to get back. Okay, we're talking about spiritual awakening, and what a spiritual awakening is. It's coming back to your soul, coming back to the soul level. And so when we understand that there is the ego at the top of the pyramid, we're above the pyramid, right? And we have entered into this pyramid that is connected down to the physical world. Just think of it as the bottom of the pyramid is the physical world, but you're coming down through these levels of this pyramid. And at the very top sits the ego. And once you're able to take hold of your ego, because your ego thinks once its job is to keep you separate and for you to think that you are it, right? Because so that you can have this human experience. Because if you're always up at the soul level, you're not really going to experience this life. So it's finding this balance in between the physical realm, but also knowing that you are this higher spiritual being, right? And so when you rise up to the spirit level, to the soul level, then you have already mastered your ego. And you already know that you are not your ego, and then you're above everything. You don't take things personally, because your ego it also contains your emotions and your attachments, and that's what we're going to get into. We're going to get into attachments, because the ultimate spiritual awakening and sitting in your soul level is detaching from everything. Um, so when you are I got offline again. Okay, so we're going to go back to the archetypes. So the archetypes are, so you have your ego, and we've already talked about the ego. And you have under your ego these archetypes, which archetypes are structures of behavior that through these structures of behavior, our soul gets its also perceives it up to the ego, but it also receives its ways of of behavior, or ways of behavior, but it's ways of expression. You get your expression through these archetypes, and archetypes are structures of understanding, structures of behavior. They're not only structures of behavior, but they're also structures of perception. So everything is a two-way street, because once you have an archetype, and an archetype is an energy, and these energies are like entities. They're like energetic fields that are connected and flow through you. And each person, we have many, many, many different archetypes that flow through us, but they're at different levels. So different levels, and at different levels I mean different strengths. So some people have more dominant archetypes, that are certain archetypes are more dominant, and other archetypes are like the minor archetypes. Um, and in every one of us, are the way that I see it, are all of these archetypes, to different levels of extreme, right? So that is why we can understand other people, because we have these archetypes within us, so we can perceive them in other people. So if we have a behavior, if we can perceive a behavior in somebody else, it's because that behavior is within us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to perceive it, and we perceive it at different levels, right? So sometimes we have dormant archetypes, archetypes that haven't gotten any kind of expression. And then that's when you see somebody and they have a certain behavior and you can't understand them whatsoever. You just can't even understand, fathom. You have no connection to them, and you just don't see how they could act like uh, even the fact that you can perceive what they're doing means that the archetype is within you. You have the perception of it. But sometimes you see behaviors that you don't even notice them, that they're going on. Like if somebody is, I don't know what. I don't know what, because when you don't perceive it, you don't perceive it. But sometimes there's behaviors that you don't even perceive. It's because that behavior is not within you, or not dominant within you, or is dormant within you. And so we have all these archetypes within us that are structures of behavior. And now these archetypes, they are, like I was saying before, they have two sides to them. They have the side of their strength and the side of their weakness. And so if you are not standing up, and that is, and this is, the archetypes are, it's something that is good. It's, I mean, there is no judgment of good or bad, but it's something that is necessary for this life experience, because these archetypes are the way that you receive your behavior. Without archetypes, you would have no behavior. You wouldn't have no personality. You would have there. Okay, you could have an ego, but then you wouldn't have any way of communicating, or of being in expression in this world. So I really want to try to sum this up. I see that, first of all, this is getting pretty long, and also I want to get I want to get off this mountain and back. But I'm glad I'm doing this, because this is a good one. This is a really good one. I like this one. Um, so these archetypes are actually tools that we receive. Now, when we master our archetypes, when that's why it's important to learn what the archetypes are. When we are able to master our archetypes, then we can see the shadows, and we can see the light of them. And once we can see the light of them, which means those are our superpowers, because the archetypes that we have are our powers, um, so our strengths. In each archetype, there's the strong side and the weak side. And when we're not standing up in our pure strength, is when we're making excuses for ourselves, when we're being the victim, when we're using blame outwardly, when we are a victim of circumstance, when we're a victim of other people. That is not taking responsibility for our own archetypes, right? Because we are each powerful beings. If we stand up in our power, then we are master manifestors in this world. And when we stand up in our powers, we realize who we are and what we are at the soul level. So really, I want to sum this up. So first of all, when you have a spiritual awakening, you start realizing that you are not the ego, and that you are not these archetypes. And then you can kind of stand outside of yourself and be an observer of yourself. And you kind of see where your weaknesses are. And once you can see where your weaknesses are, you can also see where your strengths are, because they're on the opposite side of that archetype. So it's just like with the way that it works with jealousy. When you're jealous of somebody, the answer of what you want is within that. So if you're jealous of somebody, and let's say somebody plays guitar and you're jealous of them, then it just means that you want to play guitar. So you can turn that into inspiration. And it's the exact same thing. When you have a weakness in you, it is, and you're feeling and you're suffering. When you are in weakness, you are suffering. There's no question about it. When you're blaming other people, you're suffering because you're not standing in your own strength. When you are being a victim, you are suffering because you're not standing in your own strength. Being a victim and being a bully is the exact same thing, just opposite sides. It's you not standing in your strength, because you don't need to be a bully when you stand in your strength, and you don't need to be a victim when you stand in your strength. And so when you can start going inward and seeing that you're worth it, and reprogramming yourself to understand this and see who you are, then you can start working through these weaknesses. Now, sometimes it's like a shift. And why is there so much pain in a spiritual awakening? It's because you're giving up addiction. It's just like you're changing your behavior. Your mind is used to thinking a certain way, and now it's shifting. So you're releasing your own identity. You're releasing who you thought that you were, and everything, all of the structure that you had in your life is changing and falling apart. And there is pain and change because it's going into the unknown. It's also scary because you are replacing these old thoughts with new thoughts. You're replacing these old behaviors with new behaviors. You're standing up in your strength. It's a life change. And so you're giving up old ways of behavior. It's the same thing as giving up an addiction. It's giving up a way of thought. And your ego wants to hold on to that because your ego has found solace in that, has found relief in these behaviors, and coping mechanisms in these behaviors. If you're in weakness and you're blaming somebody else, then you don't have to fix anything. Then you're a-okay. So then it gives you relief and satisfaction and the feeling like you're okay. And when you start the shift, you start realizing, oh, wait a minute, everything that I've based everything on that I've known up until now is not true. So it's also having to admit to yourself your weaknesses, having to admit to yourself that you've been wrong, which is a big deal, because then you have to admit to your surroundings as well. And change is always painful. Change is painful. Um, So the spiritual awakening is really letting go, because when the soul doesn't hold on to anything. The soul is an experiencer, like I said before. The what your ego is what holds on to things. Is what holds on to things during this life experience and tries to make things the way that they want them to be using their judgment. So a pure, and I feel like I'm getting to the end of this channeling because I feel like it's starting to close on me. So I want to really sum it up now, because I'm coming back into my body. I'm hot, and I want to get back. Um, so when you a pure awakening is understanding all of these things and understanding that you are not your ego, and taking hold of your ego as a tool to your use, and going through yourself and finding the places that you're not standing up right within your archetypes, right? Because you have these archetypes, and your archetypes have strengths and weaknesses. And when you grab a hold of your archetypes and you take hold reign of them, and you stand in your full power, then nothing hurts, because you're a powerful being and nothing outside of you determines who you are. And being at the soul level is really, the soul doesn't hold on to anything. The soul, like I said, this body is the container. This body is what contains your thoughts and your judgments and who you think you are. And um, that is at the physical level. And so when you have a spiritual awakening and you go up to your soul level, then you come into the now. You're not holding on to anything. Everything that comes through your experience, you allow to be fluid and to flow. Um, there is something to say about combining the two. That's a different video because it's getting really long. Um, that the ultimate spiritual awakening is being able to come up to that soul level and have full control over your physical being, but also in a way that you allow the you still have the experience. You're not just sitting at soul level. You've met people that have had enlightenments and they go up to soul level and then they're just stuck up there in soul level, but this physical realm isn't solved. So the ultimate experience is being able to find the balance between the two, being able to be in this level of experience, in the physical level, but also being above the physical level and being the observer at the same time. So the ultimate, and I'm going to sum this up with the ultimate spiritual, when you are in a spiritual awakening, it is letting go of everything. It is understanding it and letting it go, not getting stuck on anything. That is where the purity of the spiritual awakening is. The pain is caused in things that we're getting stuck on. We get stuck on things, we think that they need to be a certain way, and then we have pain because they're not the way that we want them to be, that we're trying to hold things in place in a certain way. But that is also narrowing our experience in this life. um, so the ultimate spiritual awakening is allowing yourself to be the experiencer, which is coming into the now, When you are in the now, you're not holding on to anything. You're experiencing everything outwardly. You're allowing things to come inwardly. At night, you process everything. But when you come into the now, you are in pure essence. You're in pure soul level. So there's lots of different ways to do this, lots of different ways for the spiritual awakening. But for the most part, it is coming into pure consciousness, coming into this one point in space, time, matter, energy. One point which is in the now, which is in the consciousness, which is being the experiencer, which is being right here. It's presence, pure presence. And with that, I'm going to say thank you for watching. This has been a lot of wind. This is a good one, though. This was channeled very well, I think. And I'm going to go back and watch this. So I really appreciate it. And I will make more videos like this. So I'm going to go get out my day. So thank you for watching. Sending you lots of love.